There's a strange phenomenon happening right now. While you're watching this, part of your brain is calculating whether to keep paying attention or switch to something easier. That calculation happens thousands of times a day, and it's quietly destroying your ability to do anything meaningful. But the ancient Stoics discovered something 2,000 years ago that neuroscience is only now confirming. The same neural mechanism making you avoid hard work can be deliberately trained to make you crave it. Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, wrote each morning in his meditations, not because he enjoyed it in the moment, but because he had trained his mind to find deep satisfaction in the effort itself. That's not motivation talk. That's applied Stoic philosophy backed by modern neuroscience. The Stoic approach to discipline begins with a fundamental insight that Epictetus taught. We are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. Your brain's resistance to hard work isn't a character flaw you need to overcome through sheer willpower. It's a trainable response pattern that you can systematically rewire through Stoic practice. And by understanding how your brain actually works through the lens of Stoic philosophy, you'll discover why willpower has been failing you and what the Stoics did instead. Your brain operates on a simple economic principle that the Stoics understood intuitively. It's constantly asking one question: what's the best return on energy investment? Every action you consider gets instantly evaluated. High effort, uncertain reward. Your brain hits the brakes. Low effort, guaranteed pleasure. Green light. This isn't a character flaw. This is survival programming from a time when conserving energy meant staying alive. But here's where Stoic wisdom becomes crucial. The Stoics recognized that this ancient programming could be deliberately reprogrammed through what they called askesis, systematic training of the mind. The problem is your ancient brain is now living in a modern world designed to exploit it. Every app, every snack, every piece of content has been engineered by teams of scientists to trigger the exact neural pathways that make you feel good with zero effort. Your brain isn't broken, it's being hacked, and the Stoic response isn't to fight this with willpower alone. It's to understand the mechanism and systematically retrain your reward system through deliberate practice. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." This wasn't just philosophical poetry. This was Seneca describing the neural rewiring process that modern neuroscience now confirms. When you avoid difficult things, you strengthen the neural pathways that make difficulty feel threatening. When you deliberately choose difficult things, you strengthen the neural pathways that make difficulty feel normal, then satisfying, then eventually craved. Let's talk about what's really happening in your head when you can't start that project or drag yourself to the gym, and how the Stoic man addresses this differently than everyone else. There's a tiny cluster of neurons called the nucleus accumbens. Think of it as your brain's motivation engine. It runs on a neurotransmitter called dopamine. But dopamine doesn't work the way most people think. It's not the pleasure chemical. It's the wanting chemical. Dopamine spikes when you anticipate a reward, not when you receive it. That's why scrolling feels so compelling. Every swipe might reveal something interesting, so your brain floods you with dopamine to keep you searching. But here's where the Stoic understanding becomes powerful. The Stoics recognize that what you want is trainable. Epictetus taught, "If you do not wish to be prone to anger, do not feed the habit. Give it nothing which may tend to its increase. Replace anger with distraction." And the principle holds, every time you feed the habit of easy dopamine, you increase its power over you. When you get too many easy dopamine hits, your brain adapts through a process called downregulation. Your dopamine receptors literally decrease in number, like your brain is turning down the volume on satisfaction. Now you need more stimulation to feel the same level of interest. A book that once captivated you feels boring. A workout that once energized you feels impossible. You're not losing discipline. You're experiencing a tolerance effect, just like with any other drug. This is why people who spend hours on social media often feel the most unmotivated. Their brains have been trained to expect constant, effortless rewards. Anything requiring sustained attention feels like punishment by comparison. The effort-to-reward ratio is all wrong. Your brain has been recalibrated to crave instant gratification, and real achievement can't compete with that. But here's where the Stoic approach diverges from modern self-help. The Stoic doesn't try to fight this with motivation or willpower. The Stoic systematically retrains the reward system itself. Marcus Aurelius practiced what he called the discipline of perception. Every morning he would deliberately reframe difficult tasks, not as burdens but as opportunities to practice virtue. He wasn't using positive thinking to feel better about hard work. He was literally rewiring his brain's reward system to release dopamine, in anticipation of effort rather than ease. Modern neuroscience confirms this works. The brain releases dopamine based on learned associations, not just inherent pleasure. If you train your brain to associate effort with reward, effort becomes rewarding. The beautiful thing about neuroplasticity is that what can be broken can also be fixed. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on what you do. Every choice you make is either strengthening neural pathways for discipline or reinforcing pathways for distraction. The question isn't whether your brain will change, it's which direction you're pushing it. And the Stoic doesn't leave this to chance. The Stoic deliberately architects the rewiring process through systematic daily practice. So what exactly is the Stoic approach to dopamine regulation, and why does it work more sustainably than modern detox methods? The Stoic doesn't think in terms of detox, a temporary intervention followed by return to normal. The Stoic thinks in terms of training, permanent rewiring of the reward system through daily discipline. Seneca wrote, "Every day send one spear to the enemy camp." He was describing the accumulation of small daily practices that fundamentally change who you are. When you remove the overwhelming sources of easy pleasure, something remarkable happens that the Stoics predicted centuries before neuroscience could confirm it. Your dopamine receptors begin to upregulate. They become more sensitive. Suddenly, activities that seemed boring before start feeling engaging. The satisfaction of completing a task, the energy after a workout, the calm after focused work. These natural rewards start registering again. You're not becoming someone new. You're returning to your natural state, what the Stoics called living according to nature. But most people fail at this because they approach it wrong. They try to white-knuckle through it, relying on willpower alone. Epictetus would have recognized this error immediately. He taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. You can't rely on willpower to overcome a hijacked reward system. You need to systematically retrain the system itself through what the Stoics called progressive training. The Stoic approach involves 3 distinct phases, each building on the previous one. Phase 1, removal of artificial stimulation. Phase 2, replacement with natural rewards. Phase 3, reframing of effort itself as the reward. Let's break down each phase with Stoic precision. Phase 1 is what moderns call dopamine detox, but the Stoic frames it differently. This isn't deprivation. This is creating the conditions for your brain to remember what natural satisfaction feels like. Marcus Aurelius would regularly practice voluntary discomfort, sleeping on hard surfaces, eating simple food, going without luxuries he could easily afford. He wasn't punishing himself. He was training his brain to find satisfaction in what's essential rather than what's excessive. For the first few days of removing high dopamine artificial stimulation, you're going to feel restless, irritable, maybe even anxious. This is not weakness. This is what the Stoics would call the fork in the road. Epictetus taught that difficult moments are when you prove your philosophy. The discomfort you feel is actually a sign that the process is working. Your brain is being forced to adjust, and it's resisting. The Stoic doesn't interpret this discomfort as failure. The Stoic recognizes it as the necessary cost of transformation. Here's what you need to do practically, following Stoic methodology. Start by identifying your highest dopamine activities, not the things you enjoy most, but the things that require the least effort for the most stimulation. For most people, this is their phone, specifically social media, short-form video content or games. But it could also be junk food, online shopping, or pornography. Whatever gives you intense pleasure with minimal effort, that's your target for phase 1 removal. Now here's the critical Stoic insight. You're not removing these things because they're morally bad. You're removing them because they're training your brain to crave ease over effort, and that makes you weak. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." When your brain craves constant stimulation, you're poor regardless of how much access you have. The Stoic removes artificial stimulation to become rich in the only currency that matters, self-sufficiency. Pick a time frame. 3 days is a minimum, 7 is better, 14 is transformative. But here's where the Stoic approach differs. This isn't a temporary detox followed by return to your old patterns. This is the beginning of permanent rewiring. Marcus Aurelius didn't practice voluntary discomfort for a week and then return to luxury. He practiced it regularly throughout his life, because he understood that the brain needs consistent training, not occasional interventions. Phase 2, replacement. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does your brain. When you take away easy dopamine sources, you need to deliberately engage in activities that provide slower, more sustainable rewards. But the Stoic does this with specific intentionality. You're not just filling time, you're training your reward system to find satisfaction in effort. Read a physical book instead of scrolling, but do it with full presence, which the Stoics called prosochi. Notice when your mind wanders toward distraction. Don't judge it. Simply return your attention to the page. You're training attention itself, which is the foundation of all discipline. Cook a meal instead of ordering, but do it mindfully, recognizing that you're practicing self-sufficiency, which Epictetus identified as the foundation of freedom. Go for a walk without headphones, instead of watching another video. Marcus Aurelius would walk the palace grounds in silence, observing his own thoughts without judgment. This practice of solitary reflection is how you rebuild your capacity for sustained attention without external stimulation. Exercise without music or podcasts. Feel the discomfort of effort without distraction. This is crucial. The Stoic deliberately practices discomfort because discomfort is where neural rewiring happens. Journal by hand, as Marcus Aurelius did every evening. Write about your daily struggles with maintaining discipline. This metacognitive practice, thinking about your thinking, strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for self-control. Have real conversations, put your phone away completely, and give another human being your undivided attention. This trains your brain to find reward in genuine connection, rather than digital validation. These activities feel boring at first, because your dopamine system is still tuned to high intensity. But here's the magic that the Stoics discovered through experience and neuroscience now confirms. As you persist, your brain starts releasing dopamine in anticipation of these activities too. After a few days of reading, your brain learns that opening a book leads to the satisfaction of learning something new. After a week of workouts, your brain starts craving the endorphin rush and sense of accomplishment. You're literally retraining your reward system to crave what makes you stronger. Phase 3 is where the Stoic approach becomes truly transformative, reframing effort itself as the reward. This is what separates temporary behavior change from permanent identity shift. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This wasn't motivational speaking. This was a description of neural rewiring. When you train your brain to see difficulty as desirable, you've achieved what modern psychology calls intrinsic motivation, but what the Stoics simply called virtue. You're no longer doing hard things to get external rewards. You're doing hard things because the effort itself has become satisfying. This is the highest form of discipline, and it's completely trainable. There's a crucial distinction the Stoics made that maps perfectly onto modern neuroscience. The difference between hedain and eudaimonia, flourishing. Pleasure is immediate and fleeting. It comes from external stimulation and requires no effort. Eudaimonia is delayed and lasting. It comes from internal accomplishment and requires sustained effort. Modern life bombards us with hedain, but leaves us empty of eudaimonia. That's why you can spend an entire day feeling entertained and still go to bed feeling unfulfilled. Your brain got pleasure, but no satisfaction. The Stoic deliberately shifts focus from seeking hedain to building eudaimonia. And here's what nobody tells you. Eudaimonia actually produces more dopamine over time than hedain does. When you accomplish something difficult, when you push through resistance and come out the other side, your brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals, including dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins. This is what athletes call a runner's high. It's what creators feel after hours of focused work. It's the deep contentment that comes from discipline, and it's far more powerful and lasting than any notification could ever be. The neuroscience backs up what the Stoics knew intuitively. Studies show that delayed gratification activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and self-control. The more you practice delaying gratification, the stronger these neural pathways become. Meanwhile, instant gratification activates more primitive parts of your brain, the limbic system, which operates on impulse and emotion. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you're quite literally strengthening the advanced parts of your brain and weakening the primitive parts. Epictetus called this strengthening the ruling faculty, the rational decision-making part of your mind that makes you human rather than merely reactive. Every moment of choosing effort over ease, you're voting for which part of your brain will dominate. The Stoic systematically votes for the prefrontal cortex through thousands of small daily decisions. Over time, this changes your default setting. Discipline stops feeling like a battle against yourself and starts feeling like your natural state. This is what people mean when they say discipline becomes a habit. It's not that it becomes easy, it's that your brain rewires to prefer it. Marcus Aurelius didn't find it easy to wake before dawn and handle the affairs of empire, but he had trained his brain to release dopamine in anticipation of doing his duty, so he craved it even when it was difficult. This is the Stoics' ultimate achievement, not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of desire for difficulty. Let me tell you what happens after proper Stoic training. You'll notice your attention span expanding dramatically. Things that used to bore you within minutes will hold your focus for an hour or more. You'll feel a clarity of thought that's been missing. Ideas will come more easily. You'll make decisions faster because you're not constantly seeking validation through your phone. You'll have more energy because you're not riding a roller coaster of dopamine spikes and crashes. Most surprisingly, you'll start feeling genuine excitement about things that used to feel like chores. That project you've been avoiding, you'll actually want to work on it. That gym session, you'll look forward to it. This isn't toxic positivity or fake motivation. This is your brain functioning the way the Stoics understood it, could function before it got hijacked by modern algorithms. But here's the thing that people don't want to hear, and the Stoics would have insisted upon. This isn't a one-time fix. Your brain will always have the capacity to drift back toward easy rewards. Seneca wrote, "Wild animals run from the dangers they actually see, and once they have escaped them, worry no more. We, however, are tormented alike by what is past and what is to come." The Stoic accepts that vigilance is permanent. The key is building systems that make discipline the path of least resistance. This is where Stoic environment design becomes crucial. Marcus Aurelius couldn't control every circumstance of his day. He was emperor of Rome with constant demands on his attention. But he controlled his morning routine absolutely. He woke before dawn. He practiced philosophy. He prepared his mind for the day ahead. He designed his environment to make virtue easy and vice difficult. If your phone is next to your bed, you'll check it first thing in the morning. If healthy food is prepared and visible, you'll eat it. If your workout clothes are laid out, you'll work out. You can't rely on willpower when your environment is sabotaging you. Design your life so that the dopamine-rich activities require effort to access and the satisfaction-rich activities are effortless to start. Delete social media apps from your phone. Use website blockers. Put your phone in another room when you work. Make junk food inconvenient and healthy food convenient. Every barrier you put between yourself and distraction is what Marcus Aurelius would call a vote for your better self. These aren't mere tactics. These are the practical application of Stoic philosophy. Control what you can control, your environment. Accept what you cannot control, your brain's natural tendencies, and have the wisdom to know the difference. There's also a social component to this that the Stoics emphasized heavily. Seneca wrote extensively about choosing your companions carefully because you become like those you spend time with. The people around you are constantly influencing your dopamine baseline. If everyone in your life is scrolling, binging, and seeking instant gratification, you'll be pulled in that direction. The neural basis for this is mirror neurons. Your brain literally mimics the behaviors of those around you. But if you surround yourself with people who value focus, discipline, and deep work, their habits become contagious. This doesn't mean abandoning your friends. It means being intentional about who you spend your time with and what activities you do together. Seek out communities that reinforce the behaviors you want to develop. The early Stoics formed schools precisely for this reason, to create environments where virtue was the norm and vice was the exception. Find accountability partners who are on the same journey. Marcus Aurelius had his philosophy teachers. Seneca had his Stoic circle. Epictetus had his students. Your brain is shaped not just by what you do, but by who you're with. The Stoic deliberately curates their social environment to support neural rewiring rather than undermine it. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Some of you are thinking, this sounds miserable. Why would I want to make life harder? And that's the trap. You're thinking about it from the perspective of someone whose brain is already hijacked. From your current state, discipline does seem harder than distraction. But this is exactly what Epictetus warned against, judging the path by your current position rather than by where it leads. From the other side, from the perspective of someone with a recalibrated brain, discipline feels easier than distraction, because distraction leaves you feeling empty, anxious, and behind. Discipline leaves you feeling accomplished, confident, and in control, which is actually harder. Spending your days chasing dopamine, hits that never satisfy you, or building a life where effort itself becomes rewarding? Marcus Aurelius would ask, which path leads to eudaimonia? The path of least resistance in the short term is actually the path of most resistance in the long term. Every time you choose ease, you make the next choice harder because you're training your brain to crave ease. Every time you choose effort, you make the next choice easier because you're training your brain to crave effort. The Stoic understands compound effects. Small choices accumulate into identity. This is about reclaiming agency over your own mind, which is what the Stoics called freedom. Right now, if you're honest, you're not really in control. Your phone controls when you feel bored. Algorithms control what you think about. Apps control how you spend your time. Epictetus, who was literally born a slave, taught that true slavery isn't external, it's internal dependence on things outside your control. That's not freedom, that's hijacking. True freedom, what Epictetus called the only thing worth pursuing in life, is having a brain that works for you, not against you. It's being able to choose difficult things and actually enjoy doing them. It's waking up excited about your work instead of dreading it. It's going to bed satisfied instead of guilty. That's what's on the other side of this process. Not perfection, not ease, but what the Stoics called living in agreement with nature, your actions finally matching your intentions. The rewiring process never truly ends, because as Seneca wrote, every day we are building the person we will become. You're always either reinforcing discipline or reinforcing distraction. Every moment is a choice. But after you've reset your dopamine system through Stoic training, the choices become easier. The pull toward distraction weakens. The pull toward meaningful work strengthens. You develop what the Stoics simply called virtue, but what modern psychology has rediscovered as intrinsic motivation. You do things because they're satisfying in themselves, not because you're chasing an external reward. This is the highest form of discipline. It's not forced, it's not white-knuckled, it's natural. Marcus Aurelius called it loving your fate, not just accepting difficulty, but actively wanting it, because you've trained your brain to find reward in the effort itself. So here's what I want you to do, following Stoic methodology. Don't just watch this video and move on. That's what the old version of you would do, the version still enslaved to easy dopamine. Instead, make one concrete decision right now. What's the single highest source of empty dopamine in your life? Identify it with brutal honesty, as Epictetus would demand. Then commit to removing it for the next 7 days. Not forever, that's too overwhelming for your current brain state. Just 7 days. This is what the Stoics called practicing in small things before attempting large ones. During these 7 days, practice what Marcus Aurelius called observing yourself from outside. Notice what happens. Notice the restlessness. Notice when it peaks. Notice when it starts to fade. Notice what fills the space. Notice how your relationship with effort begins to shift. Document the process through daily journaling, as Marcus Aurelius did. Write about the specific moments when you craved the stimulus you removed. Write about how you redirected that energy. Write about what you noticed about your own mind. This metacognitive practice strengthens your prefrontal cortex while creating a record of your transformation. Because once you see it happening in real time, once you feel your brain rewiring itself through Stoic discipline, you'll never want to go back. You'll realize what Epictetus taught. You weren't meant to live as a slave to algorithms and impulses. You were meant to be someone who does hard things and loves doing them because you've trained your brain to release dopamine in anticipation of effort. That version of you is waiting. The Stoics called it your daimon, your highest potential self. And the path to becoming them starts with a single choice to let your brain breathe, to step away from the noise, and to trust what Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus all knew from experience. On the other side of temporary discomfort is permanent transformation. Not just changed behavior, but rewired identity. Your brain is ready to be rewired according to Stoic principles. The only question is, are you ready to do what the Stoics did? Are you ready to practice daily discipline, not as a burden, but as a privilege? Are you ready to train your brain to crave what makes you strong, rather than what makes you comfortable? The Stoic path is clear. Remove artificial stimulation. Replace it with natural effort. Reframe effort as reward. Design your environment for virtue. Choose your companions carefully. Practice daily. Journal your progress. And most importantly, recognize that every single choice is either strengthening the disciplined you or the distracted you. There is no neutral. There is no maintenance. You're always training in one direction or the other. Choose the Stoic direction. Choose systematic rewiring. Choose to become someone who doesn't just tolerate discipline but craves it. Your better self, the one the Stoics knew you could become, is waiting for you to begin the training.